Okay. All right. Next, we're going to hear from some of the home care workers. Uh, First up, Ms. Yokchi Shek from the Chinese Staff and Workers Association. But I think they're sharing the same translator from the Flushing Workers Center panel as well. So, whoever's ready to go, we can just move forward. So,
Hi, can you hear us?
Uh,
Hello?
yes.
yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so I'll be the translator for Miss Jack, who's here.
大家好，我叫石玉芝，我在嘉钢护理工作，嘉钢公司做护理，24小时工作率做了8年半。一开始我们做12小时2班制，后来公司以政府没钱为理由，要我们做20小时1班制，还说如果我不做，就把病人送到养老院去。我怕害病人不敢自责，只能硬着头皮去做。公司用病人做人质，太可耻了。病人不能走动，全身痛，晚上每一个小时就起床一次，每次都是把他抬到轮椅上，推到洗手间。就算他没有需求，我也怕他随时心脏停止跳动，所以要经常看住他。白天为了照顾他，连吃饭时间都没有，长期日夜不停工作，导致我们神经衰弱、血压高、忧郁症、腰椎盘突出，整天坐床一样头晕，晚上靠吃安眠药才能睡觉，而且经常轮椅压到脚趾，把我们脚趾甲都掉了，脚趾都变形了。后来病人住院了，我也病倒了。不久前我才做胃癌手术，24小时工作率，致我们家破人亡，不能看住儿子成长，连老公都骂我，说我只顾外面人，不顾家里，24小时工作，伤害我们的健康，破坏我们家庭，把我变成病人。这份工作只有我们有色主义妇女做，是折磨，是歧视我们华人妇女的暴力。再多钱现在都买不回我们的工作，我们的健康。24小时工作要立即停止，马上停止，谢谢。
My name is Yukchi Shek, a home attendant at AmeriCare. I've worked 24-hour shifts for 8.5 years. Before that, I worked 12-hour split shifts, but then the company asked me to work 24-hour shifts, claiming that the government didn't have money, and even threatened to send the patients to the nursing home if I didn't accept. I was afraid that I could hurt the patient if I refused, so I was forced to accept it. The company was holding the patient hostage, so shameful. The patient couldn't move at all, and her whole body was in pain. She needed to get up every hour at night. Every time, I had to carry her to the wheelchair and push to that bathroom. Even if she didn't have specific needs, I had to check on her constantly, worrying that her heart could stop beating at any time. During daytime, I had very little time for meals. Long time of 24-hour shifts have brought me nervous breakdown, high blood pressure, depression, and lumbar disc herniation. I feel dizzy all the time, like staying on a boat. I have to take medication to sleep at night. And since my toes are often pressed by the wheelchair, all my toenails have fallen off, and my toes are all deformed. After my patient was admitted to the hospital, I also collapsed. Not long ago, I just had surgery for stomach cancer. 24-hour workdays ruined my family relations since I couldn't look after my son. Even my husband blamed me, saying I only care about people outside but not the family. 24-hour workdays destroy our health and family and turn me into a patient. Only women of color are doing this kind of work. This is torture and violence against us Chinese women. No amount of money can compensate for my health. The 24-hour workdays must stop now. It must stop now. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. And this is I think, a very important testimony that we're taking today that involves Medicaid home care, but as it pertains to today's testimony, today's hearing on non-Medicaid home care, I think it's a warning shot for the entire industry that in the umbrella of home care, we still have workers who had to endure these grueling 24-hour shifts. We have legislation at the state level to end 24-hour work. New York City Council also has been promoting their own version as well. So we need to come together as an entire industry to end the 24-hour work shifts and protect all home care workers, whether you're in non-Medicaid or Medicaid field. So thank you for your testimony today. And we will continue to not only advocate for ending 24 hours, but make sure that your rights as workers are protected, because what's happening to you right now, again, could impact home care workers in non-Medicaid space as well as other home care sector, because it's showing a mechanism on how to get away with abuse and how to get away with exploitation. And if we don't put a check on it now, if we don't call it out, who's to stop other non-Medicaid related home care workers and their agencies to adopt what's happening in our communities in New York City. So thank you for your bravery. Thank you for stepping up. And I know that you're suffering in your health, and I hope that we can give you the justice and the closure that you need to move forward with your life. Now you also need care after giving so much back to our community. Ms. Lucas.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience. To be honest with you, I'm horrified at what I heard. I'm saddened that you had to experience that. And as the chair indicated, and he's a staunch supporter of justice, we will do whatever it is that we need to do to support the efforts to end this type of slavery, to be quite honest with you. And I hope that we can work together. I'm happy that we're doing this today because this is important for us to be able to work together and hear the voices of the people that are impacted by these very things, so that it's not just us advocating for these things, but the world can hear you. And just want you to know that your concerns are not invisible and they are heard today.
Thank you. Next, we have a panel from the Flushing Workers Center. Ms. Sarah An, Zeke Luger, Young Fen Zhang, home care worker, and Zi Fangu, retired home care worker. Okay. Hi, Sarah.
Hello?
Hi, we can see you.
Hi. Okay, sorry, my screen is isn't set up. Hello, everyone. Thank you today for the opportunity to testify. My name is Sarah An. I am with the Flushing Workers Center. I'm speaking today about the need to address the rampant racism in home care in New York State. As you just heard from the previous testifier, the racism allowing for rampant violation of laws that are meant to protect those who need and receive home care and those who provide the care is a threat to everyone, whether it is through Medicaid or non-Medicaid. As many of you already know, immigrant women of color are forced by home care agencies to work 24 hours a day for multiple days in a row, caring for those who need constant around-the-clock care. Home care workers who are doing this work have spoken out in every forum, sounding the alarms to how it destroys their own mental and physical health, and also how their patients suffer because it is impossible for them to provide around-the-clock care without rest. They have fought to end this racist violence against them and their patients. In response, many of the same home care industry lobbyists who have testified at today's hearing have been the ones insisting that the 24-hour workday must continue, saying that more state money must fill insurance company and home care agency coffers, or that, and if not, they cannot stop the 24-hour workday. They're ignoring and fighting to destroy the laws that are already exist to protect patients and caregivers. For patients who need around-the-clock care, whether because they are bedbound or have Alzheimer's or dementia, state law says they must receive split shift care, yet insurance companies routinely deny this care and break these laws, leaving patients, their families, and their home care workers to suffer. Home care agencies even tell workers to ignore their patients at night, to watch them fall and then call 911, or to allow them to lay in their soiled diapers and clothing for hours. How inhumane, and for what? So agencies and insurance companies can pretend home care workers are getting 5 hours of continuous sleep so they can steal 11 hours of wages and continue to make maximum profits. We must end this racist practices that prey on immigrant women of color and predominantly people of color patient population by demanding agencies and home insurance companies comply with the law and demanding an end to the 24-hour workday. Otherwise, such practices will spread to even non-Medicaid paid home care. The racism that allows 24-hour to continue in home care will degrade all of our lives by allowing home care agencies, insurance companies, and lobbyists to pit patients and caregivers against each other, to lie and say workers must continue working 24-hour shifts, otherwise patients will lose care. In fact, the lines between patients and caregivers are blurred, as we see the 24-hour workday systematically destroys workers' health and drive workers into disability and illness. It is a common refrain among home care workers that many need home care after some years of working the 24-hour shifts. Workers and patients are part of the same population and communities. Right now, insurance companies and home care agencies are pitting the two groups against each other in order to profit of killing them both. We must stop them. Let's ensure all New Yorkers can age with care and dignity. That can only come from prioritizing our needs and the needs of the home care workers who care for people, not the bottom line of insurance companies. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. We have Zeke Luger on your panel as well. Is he with us? Yep. You're on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks. So hi, my name is Zeke Luger. I live in Queens in Assembly District 28. My grandmother, my grandmother has needed 24-hour care for the last 8 years. At an early stage of her dementia, my bubby began to lose her balance. At first, she tried to live her life as she used to, She tried dressing herself, walking downstairs, and going to the bathroom on her own. But she risked injury every time, especially at night. She experienced several nearly fatal falls, and would have risked many more if it weren't for 2 dedicated home attendants who provide her with around-the-clock care. These workers saved my bubby's life, and they help her to live it with dignity every day. My bubby initially received care through private pay with 12-hour split shifts. Eventually, she entered the Medicaid finance system, and the home attendants had to switch to 24-hour shifts. When I go over to my bubby's, I see firsthand not just how physically and emotionally demanding it is for home attendants to help her move around the apartment and be constantly alert to her every move and need, but I also see how deep the bond is between my bubby and the workers who care for her. And I see firsthand how her mood is a reflection of that of the workers, and how the quality of her care is a reflection of the conditions her home attendants work under. The Medicaid finance system of 24-hour shifts for patients like my bubby are not only a deeply racist and violent act that destroys the lives of home care workers, but they also deprive patients like my bubby of the care they need. These shifts lower the conditions of all home attendants working all types of shifts. They lower the conditions of all patients receiving all types of care, and they lower working conditions for all of us across New York State. Why is our state letting insurance companies and home care agencies get rich off of our exploitation and our illness? We need New York to start putting people first, workers first, and patients first to stop this racist violence that hurts all of us. I urge the Assembly members here today, my Assembly member Andrew Hevesy, and the entire Assembly to take a stand, expose this racist system depriving home attendants and patients like my bubby of our basic humanity, and put an end to it once and for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Zeke. Now we have 2 home care workers on this panel, Yang Fang Zhang and Zifan Gu.
大家好，我是张永芳。我自从2011年6月份开始做24小时，做了11年。通过每周继续做3、4天，无法回家，见不到家人，长期做24小时，令我睡眠坏了。上班时病人有的电铃响，只要病人手脚离开床电铃就响起来了，我就要过去，晚上根本没得睡。现在不上班，晚上也睡不着，或者睡着还以为在病人家里。24小时工作率对我们护理伤害非常大。我还有手臂上做坏的，长期抱着老人，导致现在手臂不时的就肿又痛，看了很多医生都看不好。我跟公司讲24小时很辛苦，公司管理员告诉我说，如果你不做，就安排别人去做，你要等很久才有工安排你做。我怕丢了工作，就不敢说继续上班。24小时工作率已经把我变成病人了，赔了多少钱都不能回来我的身体，但是为了我也不得不上班。24小时工作率必须马上停止，要分2班制。谢谢大家。
Hello, my name is Yunfang Zhang. I've worked 24-hour shifts since June 2011 for 11 years, usually 3 to 4 days a week, during which I couldn't go home to see my family. Years of 24-hour shifts have ruined my sleep. My patient had an electronic bell that rang as soon as the patient's hands and feet were off the bed. I had to check the patient as soon as I heard the bell rang, so I couldn't sleep at night. Even now, when I don't work, I can't sleep at night either. Or when I fall asleep, I would think I'm still at the patient's home. 24-hour shifts have hurt us home attendants a lot. My arms are swollen and in pain due to the constant lifting of my patients, and I couldn't recover despite seeing a lot of doctors. I told my company that 24-hour work without sleep was very difficult. The patients in charge of the company responded, "If you don't work, I will assign someone else to work, and you will have to wait for a long time before another assignment." I was afraid of losing my job, so I didn't dare to respond but continued to work. 24-hour work days have turned me into a patient. No amount of back pay can buy back my health. But to make a living, I have to continue to work. 24-hour work days must end and be changed to a split shift. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next up, we have Ms. Zifang Gu, a retired home care worker.
嗯，大家好，我是牛油果 Foundation Agency 的护理员顾志芳。在这里，我要讲述我做20小时工作日的经历。我照顾的病人是日本人，2014年中风，吃喝拉撒都要我们照顾，而且他的脑子糊涂又有幻觉，白天黑夜不停地吵闹，我整日整夜不能睡觉。熬过了整整的1年，在这1年中，我有向我的护理公司还有病人的保险公司无数次的反映关于病人的状况，要求24小时变为12小时的2班制。我病人的儿子也写了无数封的 email 给 Village Care Max 保险公司，说明20小时工作日伤害了我，也导致他父亲得不到很好的照顾。所以要求20小时变成12小时2班制，甚至病人的社工都帮忙写信给纽约市健康局。可是每一次的投诉和反映，没人给过答复，没人在意过我们的呼救。护理公司和保险公司就是这样歧视护理和病人，根本不把我们当人看。24小时工作给我们护理人带来了精神伤害和折磨，严重摧残了我们的身心健康。我因此得了严重的睡眠障碍而引起的焦虑和忧郁，每晚要靠吃药才能睡觉。24小时工作日吞噬着护理和病人的身心健康，废除不人道的20小时工作日，乘2班制已是刻不容缓。
Hello, my name is Zhifang Gu. I was a home care worker for New York Foundation. I'm going to talk about my experience of 24-hour workdays. The patient I took care of was Japanese. Since he had a stroke in 2014, we had to take care of everything for him, including eating and toileting. Because he developed hallucinations and kept screaming day and night, I couldn't sleep at all for a whole year. During this year, I had reported the patient's conditions countless times to my home care agency and the insurance company, Village Care Max, and demanded to change the 24-hour shift to 2 12-hour shifts. The patient's son also wrote many emails to the insurance company asking for split shift, stating that the 24-hour workdays hurt me and led to his father not getting good quality of care. Even the patient's social worker wrote a letter to the New York State Department of Health. Despite our complaints and reports, no one gave a response or care about our suffering. The home care agency and the insurance company discriminated against me and my patients and didn't treat us as human beings. 24-hour workdays have tortured us home attendants and destroyed our physical and mental health. I've developed insomnia, anxiety, and depression, and have to take medications every night in order to sleep. 24-hour workdays affects the well-being of both the workers and the patients. It is imperative to end the 24-hour workdays and change them to split shifts.
Thank you so much for all your testimonies today. Just for clarity, Sarah, quick follow-up question. To get this on record, what is the rule right now as it pertains to 24-hour work? And I'm sorry? Yeah, and split shifts and 24-hour work, and of 24-hour work, how many hours are workers entitled to in terms of paid hours? So can you clarify where the law stands right now and what agencies must do before we split shifts to be in compliance with the statute?
Sure. Yeah, it's my understanding that currently the law states that if the home care workers that is doing these 24-hour shifts are not receiving 5 hours of continuous uninterrupted sleep, so that doesn't mean piecing together 5 hours of sleep, but you're not getting that rest, then they are entitled to all 24 hours of wages. It's also my understanding that for patients who really need around-the-clock care, so and they also consider the 5 hours if their caretaker is getting 5 hours of sleep, and they need around-the-clock care, so their caretakers cannot get that 5 hours of sleep, they should be receiving split shifts.
Okay. And are home care workers entitled to overtime?
I believe yes. I think there are a few exceptions with nonprofit home care agencies if they correctly applied for some exemptions, but they are entitled to overtime.
And the New York State basic wage laws apply to home care workers, correct?
Yes. And there's even additional laws, state laws, meant to, like the Home Care Parity Act law that applies to home care workers.
And that applies.
These laws are unfortunate.
And that applies to all non-Medicaid, Medicaid, all home care workers across the industry, correct?
I'm actually not certain on that. I think all state and federal laws apply to all home care workers, regardless of Medicaid or non-Medicaid.
And based on your experience, despite this New York State having perhaps one of the nation's strongest worker protection rights that we as a legislature fought so hard to pass over the years, what happens to those rights when workers are forced into non-consensual arbitration to settle disputes?
So unfortunately, even though on the books, our state has strong laws, when it comes to the reality and it comes to enforcement of these laws, there's widespread violations. For the workers who are forced into mandatory arbitration, there's an additional hurdle in which that they're deprived of their right to even go to court like any other person, any other worker, to try to right the wrong, right? To try to recover their unpaid wages, and more, I think. More problematically, I think an issue also is that the arbitration, especially the industry-wide arbitration led by 1199, it actually opens up a pathway for agencies to continue violating the law. Because now you have said these workers cannot go to court and get relief. They have to go through arbitration. And the past arbitration that they did is giving workers back pennies on the dollar and says nothing about the continuation of these violations. So I think that, that's the impact, right? So we really need to enforce our laws, enforce them across the board, and that's the only way we'll be able to have a better home care industry.
Thank you.
Better long-term care.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for answering those questions. I bring those questions up because this is a clear warning sign for the entire home care industry beyond just Medicaid into non-Medicaid sector as well. Because if we don't call this out and have some of these uncomfortable conversations, we're literally writing a new way for providers to exploit workers that other, not just nonprofit providers, but other companies and other industries can emulate. All you have to do is figure out a path to get workers to sign off on non-consensual forced private arbitration. And no matter what you do, no matter how much you abuse and exploit the workers, at the end of the road, you can try to settle with nickels and pennies on the dollar and try to bypass any of the state laws that was designed to protect workers. So this is something that I think we should collectively call out on and try our best to figure out how to undo and at least prospectively make sure we don't repeat the same mistakes. Thank you so much for your testimony, Ms. Lucas.
Hi, Sarah. I just needed some clarity. You made mention earlier in your testimony about wage death. Can you give a little clarity about that and walk me through what you mean by that?
Yeah, definitely. As you heard from some of the home care workers themselves who spoke, the widespread practice in the state, despite the fact that it is violating our laws, is that home care workers who do these 24-hour shifts are only paid for 13 hours. They do this under the guise that workers are getting sleep, are getting meal breaks, etc. But by and large, it is not the case because, again, as many testified, these are patients who really do need around-the-clock care. So they are systematically being having their wages stolen. Every 24-hour day they work, they are not paid for 11 of those hours.
And how many hours are they permitted for meal breaks?
It's supposed to be 3 one-hour meal breaks. And you're supposed to get 8 hours of sleep, 5 of which is supposed to be uninterrupted. I want to clarify that is how they try to explain only paying 13 hours, but that is not the reality.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and the panels.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us testify.
Okay. Next up, we have Rafaela Urena from the National Mobilization Against Sweatshops. Hello.
Hey, Assemblymember Kim. Thanks for inviting us. Rafaela was in great pain this morning, so couldn't make it down to our center, but she's available by FaceTime, if that's okay. She couldn't figure out the Zoom on her phone, sorry. Would that be okay if I put her on here?
Yeah, we'll do our best.
Okay.
If we can't hear her, we'll let you know. We
Okay.
do have her testimony here, so regardless, we'll make sure it's submitted.
Okay, thank you. I'll give her a quick call.
And may we ask your name and your...
Yes, I'm Joanne Lum. I'm an organizer with a worker center based in New York called the National Mobilization Against Sweatshops. Hi there. I'm sorry. She's having some difficulty getting on the video. So maybe would it be okay if I read her testimony, Assemblymember?
Sure. Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. So it's in Spanish, so I can translate it.
Okay.
My name is Rafaela Ureña. Oh, I'm sorry. Now she's calling me. Rafaela. Aló. Okay. Okay, tú puedes subir. Tú quieres testificar porque ahora están aquí, pero no podemos verte. Okay, ya. Okay, Okay, yo voy a ponerte en cámara para hablar con el concejal, ¿ok? Okay. Pero ponga el cámara para que ellos puedan verte. No podemos verte.
Joanne, why don't we do this? We're having a hard time hearing the FaceTime, so we'll just acknowledge her presence, and maybe you can read her testimony in English. Does that work?
Sure, okay, yeah. Rafaela, yo voy a leerlo porque ellos no pueden verte, ¿ok? Hablamos. Okay, hablamos.
Tell thank you.
Okay, dicen gracias, Rafaela. Okay, sorry. My name is Rafaela Ureña. I have been a home attendant for 18 years. I worked 24 hours for 10 years. I work with First Chinese Presbyterian, which has $11.99. We are suffering from these 24-hour shifts. I am living the consequences of these 24-hour shifts, which is a form of racist violence against us women. I couldn't sleep. I almost couldn't eat. My children would say, "You're never here with us. You're always at work." They took advantage of my absences, spending time in the street. My husband would say, you leave me alone. Now, I have 2 arms that don't work. I have hernias above and below my back. I don't have any more strength in my legs. I almost can't walk. I have to use a cane. Now, I need a home care worker. Money can't buy your health, your time with your family. For this reason, we have to stop the 24-hour shifts. This is the reason that many home care workers do not want to work in home care, because of these 24-hour shifts. The state laws that should protect patients and us workers are not complied with, are not enforced. For this reason, these 24-hour shifts continue. For this reason, the wage theft continues. This benefits the agencies and the insurance companies, not us. I call on our representatives to enforce the laws to put an end to these work days of 24 hours. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony today. Next, we'll be joined by Charlie Rands on Zoom. Charlie, are you with us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Trying
can.
to get can you see me?
Not yet. We see your name.
Okay, let me just try to. I'm trying to.
There you go.
Okay, all right. I'm the daughter of parents, both of whom developed Alzheimer's. And as a result of needing home care for both my mother and father, I learned of the appalling working conditions and wages of the home attendants for those covered by Medicaid. I had been shocked to learn that when my father was added to the case, he developed Alzheimer's a few years after my mother, thereby doubling the home attendant's workload, their salary was increased by 50 cents an hour. Twice as much work for 50 cents more. When my mother's condition deteriorated, she qualified for 24-hour coverage. I was informed that instead of 2 12-hour shifts, it would be a 24-hour shift, of which only 13 hours would be paid. In other words, they had to work an additional 11 hours for 0 wages. I thought about the lack of sleep, not getting paid, and wondered what the quality of care such exploitation would result in. I couldn't be a party to this injustice. I declined the service. When my father's condition required multiple diaper changes and repositioning every 2 hours during the night, I again applied for the additional 12-hour shift. The managed long-term care company would only provide one aide to work an entire 24 hours. Despite a letter from his doctor explaining the need for 2 12-hour shifts, they refused. His bed sores worsened and he risked serious infections. I appealed the decision of the MLTC, and of course, for this formality of internal and external appeals, it's just a rubber stamp of what the MLTC wants, and a means for them to wear you down with delays, and eventually I filed for a fair hearing. These 24-hour shifts must be eliminated. They're not good for workers, not for seniors like my parents who required around-the-clock care. Why isn't our state government enforcing the laws that protect workers and patients so that the 24-hour shifts be split and the wage theft be stopped? I'm finished.
Thank you so much, Shirley, for your testimony. We've heard from workers now directly from the consumers about the need to make sure that we end the 24-hour work shifts for workers. It's not good for workers or the consumers. And again, this is a warning shot for non-Medicaid home care sector as well, to make sure that we don't engage for ISIP and other community grant programs under SOFA. We're not engaged now, but make sure that we don't engage in this 24-hour work shifts in the future. It's also clear that some of the MLTCs who we've sat with, who in private meetings told us that it's easy to split shifts. We give out 12 shifts as we request them. It's not the case. We're hearing directly from consumers that they have to go through a rigorous process to split the shifts. So, we need to hold those intermediaries accountable, but we should also be grateful that with the non-Medicaid programs, we're working directly with counties to pay for home care and not relying on a intermediary or an MLTCs to pay for the services. So thank you so much today for your testimony, Shirley. Next up, we will bring down Jean Chirico, President and CEO of Hospice and Palliative Care Association of New York State. Thank you. This is a very big testimony. Wow, it's a book.